easier for me to use when I'm out. I even use them in my airplane to carry 4 or 5 that could be gone for a whole day. Now that I've found the best catheter for me, it's made my life much easier. There are so many innovative catheters. Get the best catheter for you. Call Liberator Medical, a CRR company. Get your good catheter sample back. Call 1-800-315-7775. 1-800-315-7775. Hi, no sweat here. This storm season, get the entire family of Flex Seal products. Flex Seal creates a super strong barrier that seals out the elements. It's liquid rubber in a can, and with Flex Seal liquid, you can brush, roll, dip, or pour. With Flex Shot, you can hold, bond, and seal virtually everything. Flex Tape is the super strong waterproof tape that can hold bonds and anything. Make the Flex Seal family part of your storm preparation kit.
Yeah, of course. We'd love to have you over for dinner.
The moment you realize your guests are coming and your old floors need to be going. Exactly. At Lowe's, we have all the latest floor styles for any room at prices you'll love. All projects have a starting point. Start with Lowe's. Hurry into Lowe's and get wood look tiles starting at only 99 cents per square foot.
I'm proud of the Weather Channel. It's a place you can turn to and trust.
Our team's taking you into the storm with live reports and expertise you won't get anywhere else. We are meteorologists, and that makes a tremendous difference.
When it comes to weather situation that warrants attention, we're the place to go. It's that simple.
Closed captioning brought to you by Aruba. One happy island.
And welcome back to continuing coverage here. We're going to go straight to Miami-Dade with the mayor for the latest on what their preparations are.
And had to get the data and then overlay that over our particular GIS. And their storm surge data doesn't align with the FEMA maps. And so the FEMA maps are the ones that are red, orange, and yellow, et cetera, green. And so then we had to then kind of align that and make some decisions as to where we thought would be the most prudent course of action in order to order these evacuations. Yes, there are, and they came with that map, and so there are different storm surge elevations or storm surge is not the same everywhere. You have different elevations. You have also how far away are you from the coast, etc. So these are pretty sophisticated maps. What they did say is that there is a 90% chance that it will reach this. It will either be this or less. Okay. And there's only a 10% chance that it will be worse than what they put on their maps. So it's a very good tool for them. And obviously, when they issue their storm surge warning or watch, we have to take that very seriously, and we incorporate it into our planning. That's why I've ordered these additional evacuations. 90% is that it's 90%, according to their calculations, that the storm surge will be either up to that or less. Only 10% up to whatever their calculations show, or less. It could be 10. There is a 10% chance it could actually be more. Okay. I don't have those numbers. I wasn't into looking at particular numbers. We had a value that we wanted to make sure that nobody in Miami-Dade County would be subject to, according to this prediction and these maps and the computer run, that would be subject to life-threatening storm surge. And so that's where these evacuations have taken place. Take it. Esta orden de evacuación está basada en un pronóstico
Welcome back. I'm meteorologist Chris Byrne. Thanks, Mayor, for giving us the coverage there in Miami-Dade.
And I'm meteorologist Maria LaRosa. We continue our coverage of Hurricane Irma. I want to bring in Carl Parker with the very latest right now because, Carl, we're within maybe an hour or two of some of the worst effects now moving into the Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, that's right. It's not very far away at all from the Turks and Caicos, and I'll show you that in just a moment. We also have some new information as regards the European Model 1, just a little bit of a shift here, and we'll take a look at that as well. We are watching now one of the strongest storms in Atlantic Basin history. Got up to 185 miles per hour for 35 straight hours. No storm in recorded world history has done it for that long. Now Category 5 at 175 miles per hour, moving west-northwest at 16. And again, as Maria mentioned, coming into the eastern end of the Turks and Caicos, probably in about an hour or so. Here you see the tremendous area of light wind aloft. Notice how the high clouds really fanning out in all directions and showing you there's no wind aloft. So wind shear is not going to affect the system until it gets up to the latitude of northern Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. That is not going to hold it back at all. We look at water temperatures. The water is exceptionally warm as you get up from the Florida Straits. There's a depth to that warmth as well. That too can feed into the system. The only thing that might hold it back a little bit would be some changes in internal dynamics that happens all the time with these storms, and perhaps some land interaction with Cuba. But right now, based on all of the available evidence, the forecast from the National Hurricane Center calling for the storm to maintain its status as a Category 5 going through Saturday, and then weakening slightly to a Category 4 as it makes landfall in South Florida. It is possible that it comes right into South Florida, in which case we'd be talking about a devastating impact there. This is again based on all of the available evidence right now and the history of that evidence as well. And if it were to come right up and along that 95 corridor, the impact could be absolutely tremendous. It could be similar in some respects to Matthew, but actually worse than that, because we're talking about a stronger storm that is going to affect South Florida potentially more directly than did Matthew. And then beyond that, you see huge impacts in Georgia as well as in South Carolina. Storm surge, wind, very heavy rain on top of that. We could be talking about a major hurricane as it's getting up into that latitude. But again, farther to the north, that's when that stronger wind really starts to kick in. Now, let's take a look at what we're seeing in the modeling. And for a time, it looked like the modeling was starting to settle in a little bit. When you see run after run after run, and it's showing you the same thing, and you start to have a little more confidence in the forecast. The GFS and European were close. Last night's European model and this morning's GFS models were closer, showing the core of that storm coming right up in towards South Florida. That would really maximize the impacts there in South Florida, and you'd see this tremendous surge and wave action all the way up and along the coast in the case of what the GFS is representing in its most recent run. The European model, we just got this morning's run of the European model just now, and it has shifted a little bit to the west. So we might see more of an impact. Certainly we would see more of an impact in the Keys and Southwest Florida. If it were to happen like that, we might see a little less of an impact in South Florida if it were to happen like that. But this is just one model run, and certainly we'll have to wait and see if there's a trend here. And then beyond that, the European model takes the storm squarely up into Central Florida. That would also increase the impacts in Tampa and Orlando, lessen the impacts along the coast, as well as into Georgia and South Carolina further down the line. So it's a terrible scenario, no matter how you look at it. It's just a matter of where the very worst of it is going to be. And we expect that those tropical storm force winds are going to begin to move in to South Florida starting very late Friday and early on Saturday. Chris, Maria, back to you.
All right, Carl, thank you so much.
All right, one place now under a hurricane watch is Hollywood, Florida, and that's where we find reporter Justin Michaels. And Justin, there's been a lot of fear of stores possibly running out of food and water. Is that the case? And what do you want those people to know if there's been any misconceptions?
Well, I can tell you, at least at this Publix right now, it's pretty well stocked. Yeah, they're running low on different things. Water keeps coming in different shipments, bread, things like that, non-perishable items. They do keep getting shipments in. It seems like every hour they're getting a different shipment of something in. So they're keeping this store as stocked as possible. And we can only assume other Publix stores, as big of a grocery chain as that is, they're keeping those stores stocked as well. We do know from Publix corporate, every single Publix here in South Florida will shut down at 9 o'clock on Saturday night. So people have between now and 9 o'clock Saturday night to bulk up on everything they possibly can. We have been speaking with people here at this Publix throughout the day, and in fact, we spoke to a gentleman, Dave Ivey, not all that long ago. This will be Dave's 16th Yes, 16th hurricane, living here in Hollywood, Florida, and he has some advice for people going into one for the first time. Listen. You've been through 15 hurricanes here.
That is correct. I have been here since 1960, and there were actually 3 hurricanes in 1 month that I went through. I didn't get to take my shutters off. They just kept coming and coming.
How do you compare this preparation to the ones you've seen in the past?
I think they're better prepared this time. I see more people getting gas, buying food ahead of time. In the past, a lot of people did not take it serious. The last minute they tried, and then once the wind starts, there's nothing more to try. You're stuck where you're stuck. This one is a little bit scary because most of them don't come up to the middle of the state. Most of them come off the ocean. And it's a different thing. When you go out the state, you're going to have more people affected by it. So I worry about others. I don't worry about myself because I've done so many of them now that it's like falling out of bed, you know.
So then again, Dave Ivey going into storm number 16. He's lived through 15. This will be number 16. Like you hear him say, he's not too worried. However, there is some concern by so many people, and that is a good concern to have. People are taking this very seriously, and that is probably the best way to go into any storm, especially one as powerful as Irma. Chris, into you.
I'll take it, Justin. Thank you so much. And, you know, we're always suggesting that you listen to the officials and what they're suggesting, of course, and watching for the evacuation orders and if they are expanding. And that's the case in Miami-Dade County. Let's show you some of the current situation, current advisories and watches we have in orange here. The hurricane watch is from West Palm Beach all the way down to Key West, including Key Largo and Marathon. Rain, heavy at times. Obviously, this is one to watch too, as we could be looking at 12 to 18 inches of rain in Miami. Again, that is traffic dependent, but also keeping a very close eye on that storm surge out of Marathon, Florida, perhaps up to 10 feet. Of course, the elevation at Marathon, Florida is only about 3 feet above sea level. Miami, that storm surge could be up to 10 feet. Again, those 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts, perhaps as early as Sunday morning.
My sweetheart's gone, sayonara. This scarf, all that's left to remember. What? She lost this like a month ago!
Long-lasting scent of you, now available in matching scents across your entire laundry routine.
Liberty Mutual stood with me when this guy got a flat tire in the middle of the night.
Hold on, Dad. Liberty did what?
Yeah, Liberty Mutual 24-hour roadside assistance helped him to fix his flat so he could get home safely.
My dad says our insurance doesn't have that. Don't worry, I know what a lug wrench is, Dad. Is this a lug wrench?
Maybe.
You can leave worry behind when Liberty stands with you. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
It's flu season. At our age, flu can be more serious. Nobody has time for that. It's my time to do the things I love.
But as we age, our immune system can weaken, and traditional flu shots may not work as well for us. Fluad, designed for adults 65 and older. Unlike other flu shots, Fluad contains an immune-enhancing ingredient that can help provide a strong immune response to the flu. You should not receive Fluad if you have had a severe allergic reaction to any of the ingredients in the vaccine in the past, including egg protein, or severe reaction to a previous influenza vaccine. Tell your healthcare provider if you've ever had Guillain-Barré syndrome, severe muscle weakness after getting a flu shot, or have an allergy to rubber latex. The most common side effects of Fluad are pain or tenderness at the site of injection, muscle aches, headache, and fatigue. It's time you ask your healthcare professional about Fluad. Designed for adults 65 and older.
Identity theft can happen to anyone.
My savings account and my checking accounts were both drained. All of my money was gone.
I could not believe that somebody would steal my tax refund and made me angry.
She had my social security number, and she was able to make a purchase for $8,000.
Today's technology makes identity theft easier and easier. If you use a smartphone, shop online, use public Wi-Fi, or fill out forms or applications, you're at risk. There's a new victim of identity fraud every 2 seconds. 1 in 4 people have already experienced it. Is there anything you can do about it?
I called LifeLock.
Millions of people have already become members. LifeLock's proprietary technology scans hundreds of millions of transactions each second to spot threats to your identity. If we detect your information being used, you get an alert. If you have a problem, a U.S.-based restoration agent will work to fix it. And you'll be covered by LifeLock's $1 million protection package, including lawyers and experts if needed, and reimbursement of stolen funds and personal expenses up to the limits of your plan.
You have this whole team of people on your side, and you know that you don't have to go it alone.
And unlike free credit monitoring that just monitors your credit, LifeLock detects and works to fix identity theft.
LifeLock, they're not just going to monitor your credit, they're going to be there to help you afterwards if something happens.
Join today for as low as $9.99 per month and get 60 days risk-free with promo code LL60. LifeLock members get identity threat detection and alerts, a dedicated U.S.-based restoration agent assigned to your case, and you'll be covered by LifeLock's $1 million protection package. Start your membership today. Enroll in minutes.
Victims anymore.
LifeLock. Call 1-800-817-4579 or visit LifeLock60.com. Use promo code LL60 to get your 60 days risk-free and free shredder with annual membership. Call
Head to the Chevy Labor Day sales event and ride out the summer in a new Chevrolet. Current Chevy owners can use Labor Day bonus cash to get a total value of $11,600 on this Silverado All-Star, or get 0% financing for 72 months on all Tahoe and Suburban models. Find new roads at the Chevy Labor Day sales event.
All right, welcome back to the Weather Channel's full coverage here of Hurricane Irma. You can see this monster of a storm still at a Category 5 with winds of 175 miles per hour.
And right now you can see a look at where we're watching the gusts already close to 30 miles per hour as it approaches the Turks and Caicos. What you're seeing there on the right yesterday, video coming in of hard-hit Barbuda and Antigua. You can see also Key West, sort of the opposite, where they're awaiting the effects here. Blue skies, a peaceful scene, but evacuations underway there.
Kind of the calm before the storm. But facing a natural disaster is dangerous and stressful, especially for children. Sarah Thompson joins us now on the phone from Save the Children. Sarah, thanks for joining us. What can parents do to help children during a disaster like this? All right. Tough audio issues, but that's okay. We'll have more on what children can do. First, though, let's get the latest here with Hurricane Irma with our storm specialist and hurricane specialist, Carl Parker.
So we're watching an incredibly dangerous storm right now that is making its way slowly towards the Turks and Caicos Islands. It's going to be moving in an hour or so into the easternmost part of those islands. And there you see the storm from the satellite view. This storm is historic in nature. We have never, in recorded world history, since the satellite era, seen a tropical cyclone worldwide that has been stronger, longer than this storm, 185 miles per hour for 35 hours straight. And that well exceeds the previous record set by Typhoon Haiyan as it came into the Philippines. That was 24 hours. So as the latest advisory, the wind now 175 miles per hour. We'll get a new advisory coming up here at 5 p.m. Category 5 storm moving west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. There you see the very dangerous eye wall, the center of the storm, around the eye, right in there. That's where the very worst of the wind is. That's the area of the storm that raked parts of the Leeward Islands, Barbuda in particular, as well as St. Martin, St. Bart's, and Anguilla, and then into the British Virgin Islands. And now it's not very far away from the eastern end of the Turks and Caicos. There you see Cockburn Town, and now only about 16 miles away, that eye wall, as it is moving towards the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. So that's going to bring it in about an hour or so. They're already getting plenty of weather, I'm sure. Winds gusting to hurricane force, if not actually at hurricane force. But when that eye wall comes in, that's when the winds really step up well over 100 miles per hour. So significant wind damage on the way. But in addition to that, you've got this water that's been piling up, and there's a lot of low-lying terrain there in the Turks and Caicos, as well as across the Bahamas. Elevations in many of these areas on the order of 5 to 10 to 15 feet. So with a 15 to 20-foot surge coming into these islands, we're expecting that there could be significant flooding there, inundation of those islands, with, on top of that, wave heights of 30 and 40 feet just offshore. It's going to be devastating in terms of water impacts and in terms of wind impacts as well. This is the area that was just absolutely crushed by Joaquin a few years ago, and we're talking about another hit that's going to be very bad indeed for a lot of the very same areas. Now, here's the water vapor image, and I want you to notice how the high cloud is really spreading out in all directions there. So there's very light wind aloft. There's no wind shear that's going to be affecting the system anytime soon. By the time it gets up into the vicinity of North Florida and Georgia and also South Carolina, we will see an increase in wind speed and also wind shear. But until that time, there's not going to be any wind shear, and you've got only warm water ahead. And this is why the storm is forecast to continue to be exceptionally strong, Category 5 into Saturday, Category 4 on Sunday, as it is moving into South Florida or very close to it. Maria, Chris, back to you.
All right, Carl, thank you so much. I believe we have Sarah Thompson from Save the Children back. And Sarah, we're trying to prep children for a disaster potentially here like this. What are some of your recommendations to get our kids ready?
Children about the emergency. Let them know that a disaster is a natural event and not anyone's fault. Using simple, age-appropriate language can help them feel a sense of understanding and control. Make sure that you talk through your evacuation plan together so that they know what's going on.
And Sarah, how open should you be with children about the dangers during the storm?
Be honest with children and listen to them. And it's really important that you're reassuring, letting them know that you're going to keep them safe by planning ahead, and that in any disaster, there's going to be many caring adults like first responders and teachers working to keep them safe.
We have about 20 seconds or so, a resource that parents can go to now to get some of those, get some of that information.
These emergency cards and pack and go back for each child, and go to savethechildren.org/get ready.
All right, Sarah Thompson, thank you so much. We'll be checking back in with Sarah. Always a great thing, too, to bring them into the process of also what they should take, things that comfort them.
And if they were to get separated, what to do for the children's perspective. Of course, we'll be right back with the latest on Irma coverage.
We're out of the office. That doesn't mean you're not working. At Men's Warehouse, we'll help you find a look, close any deal. Now with buy one, get one free on select items, plus take an additional 40% off clearance. Your clients are going to like the way you look.
Grounding dust and dirt doesn't wait for the big weekly clean. So grab the only cord-free vacuum with a Dyson Digital Motor V8 that has powerful suction to clean deep. And up to 40 minutes run time to clean anywhere. Anytime, by anyone.
To the first responders and leaders working endless hours to keep us safe. To the TV providers who carry our coverage, helping spread warnings and information when needed most. To the people all across the country who showed that a disaster like Harvey never divides us. Instead, it only brings out our best.
I love you, Julius Caesar, but sometimes you stink. Febreze Carpet cleans away odors for up to 30 days. Because the things you love can stink.
I'm only in my 60s. I've got a nice long life ahead, big plans. So when I found out Medicare doesn't pay all my medical expenses, I got a Medicare supplement insurance plan.
If you're eligible for Medicare, you may know it only covers about 80% of your Part B medical expenses. The rest is up to you. Call now and find out about an AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan insured by United Healthcare Insurance Company. Like all standardized Medicare Supplement insurance plans, it could save you in out-of-pocket medical costs. Call now to request your free decision guide.
I've been with my doctor for 12 years. Now I know I'll be able to stick with them.
You'll be able to visit any doctor or hospital that accepts Medicare patients. Plus, there are no networks and virtually no referrals needed. See why millions of people have already enrolled in the only Medicare supplement insurance plans endorsed by AARP. Don't wait. Call now.
Where are we? About to see Progressive's new Home Quote Explorer, where you can compare multiple quote options online and choose what's right for you.
Whoa.
Hello, Jamie, here's the HQX.
Sloan Jamie, request entry. Slovakia, Triceratops, Tapioca, Racquetball, Staccato,
Mioma Jaime,
Pumpernickel, Pudding.
Hey guys. Home Quote Explorer. It's home insurance made easy.
That's what it's, hey guys.
Where's Gary?
Save money on motorcycle insurance with Geico. Going up the country. Later, Gary.
I have a motorcycle. Wonderful.
Geico Motorcycle. Rides.
The following message is brought to you by Mesobook.com.
People who have been diagnosed with mesothelioma have many questions. How did I get this disease? What are my treatment options? How will this affect my loved ones? You need answers, which is why we offer a free book written by medical professionals who have treated mesothelioma.
Call toll-free at 1-800-300-7112 or go to mesobook.com.
Looking for a man, not only for myself, but for my son. When I went on eHarmony, I had to fill out a lot of questions about myself, so they really got to know who I was and what I was looking for.
eHarmony, I think, is the only dating website that could bring something to me, the exact kind of person I was looking for. Other sites seemed really shallow. There's no perfect match beyond Angela. She's the best person for me.
Maybe it's your turn. Stop waiting. Start communicating for free today.
When the weather turns serious, the first thing I'm thinking is, how do I communicate the message very clearly to people so they understand what the risk is and how to get through this?
And you're looking at damage done by Irma over St. Martin. Of course, they got hit by devastating Irma about 24 hours ago, and you're seeing devastating pictures of really sturdy buildings, high-rise complexes and resorts seeing devastating destruction.
And you still see some intact, which again is kind of an amazing thing, knowing that they, were faced with the most brutal part of Hurricane Irma. And you notice too the shrubbery, the trees just stripped of their leaves. Amazing scenes coming out of the St. Martin area.
And we're talking about, they're well above the ground floor, so not just a water fear and concern, but also a wind concern with breaking windows and everything. With the latest on Hurricane Irma, we're going to send it straight over to Carl.
Well, Chris, an incredibly dangerous storm, now 175-mile-per-hour wind, Category 5 storm, and we don't expect that it's going to weaken very much at all as it moves towards Florida, maybe just down a category or so, but intensity forecasts can be problematic. What we know is that there's very little holding the storm back. There may be some land interaction with Cuba in particular, but in terms of water temperatures, in terms of the upper air pattern, the lack of wind shear, there's really nothing holding the storm back before it starts to move towards Florida. And here's a look at the forecast track and intensities from the Hurricane Center. And again, if it does get a little closer to Cuba, we see a little more interaction with land there. That could have an impact on the intensity. These smaller islands in the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos aren't generally going to have that much of an impact. And then you see this turn taking place here. Now, the model guidance has been back and forth, as is often the case. And based on all of the available model guidance as of earlier today, the Hurricane Center has this forecast showing you the center line of that track coming into South Florida. So that's the best guess as to where the storm might be, including the best guess in terms of intensity, which is a Category 4. That doesn't mean that that is set. We could be looking at something slightly weaker. We could be looking at something slightly stronger. But that's the best guess right now. And the storm coming up then and along the coast of Florida, and that would be a sort of worst case scenario for that 95 corridor, bringing wind and waves and surge into the coast and all the way up the coast as it moves up and towards Georgia and South Carolina. Now, that having been said, the reason why the cone gets wider as you go out in time is because we're taking into account the forecast errors, the average forecast errors, which increase as you get farther out in time. And that also leaves room for all the wiggling that occurs in the models. And believe me, there's a lot of it, where we've seen a little bit of a trend in the last couple of days to move some of the models farther out towards the east and more out into the open water. We just got a new model run from the European, which is a little farther to the west, implicating the western part of the state. And so that would mean really different things in a lot of cases. It is a large circulation, and so we'd still be talking about very strong wind, even if the storm came in a little farther west here. Obviously, that would raise the stakes. That would increase the potential of just devastation in the Keys, in southwest Florida, into Naples, say, and up towards Sarasota and Tampa and Orlando. If it were more on the west side of that track, it came right down the middle, that would certainly bring impacts to the western part of the state, but it wouldn't be as great as it would be if it was more to the left. And then obviously if it went out here to the right side, there'd be some chance that that eye wall, that very most dangerous part of the storm, would not directly affect a lot of South Florida, but that appears to be less of a chance. There appears to be less of a chance of that occurring, at least at this point in time. And then in the longer term, right up and through the central part of Florida, obviously that would maximize impacts in Orlando and Tampa, but it would also weaken the storm more quickly, and it would lessen the impacts in the Carolinas and in Georgia, whereas if it were a little offshore or right on the coast, that would also maximize the impacts in Georgia and South Carolina. So there are a lot of different possibilities. We're not going to get out of the storm at this point. We know it's going to have a significant impact, but there are a lot of different possibilities in terms of who exactly is affected the worst by the storm. Maria, over to you.
All right, and then a lot of gray area too, those side effects too. We've got our eyes on two other storms that will have impacts too. I want to start with Hurricane Jose. The only way to describe this is just breaking your heart, because this is forecast to affect areas that were hard hit by Irma. But the current status of Jose right now, winds of 105 miles per hour. That is Category 2 storm moving to the west-northwest at 18 miles per hour. And you are not mistaken here. These are hurricane watches up now for Barbuda and Antigua, two islands very hard hit by Hurricane Irma. Again, just yesterday, these are conditions that could be being felt here in the next 36 to 48 hours, but also tropical storm watches there in yellow, including Saba and the St. Kitts. So you've got maximum winds of 115 miles per hour. So perhaps a major hurricane knocking on the door of the northern Leeward Islands. Again, time frame being Saturday and into Sunday. This is not a repeat of Irma. I want to stress that, but obviously these hard-hit areas, this is just a terrible situation that is expected to curve off to the north once it passes that area. We also have Hurricane Katia, max winds at 80 miles per hour. It is not moving very much, but expected to take a turn towards the Mexico coast here. Hurricane warnings in purple for Cabo Rojo and Laguna Verde. Those areas, again, the warning meaning feeling the effects of possible hurricane strength winds within the next 24 hours. There you have the forecast moving inland as we get from Friday into Saturday.
The journey into Bermuda this afternoon, absolutely devastating.
Do not sit and wait for the storm to come. It is extremely dangerous and deadly and will cause devastation.
It is just a total devastation. I mean, Bermuda right now is literally a rubble.
Hurricane Irma heading for the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos after leaving a path of death and destruction in its wake.
It will then set its sights on Florida and parts of the southeast by this weekend. The National Hurricane Center has issued a hurricane and storm surge watch for portions of South Florida and the Florida Keys.
We'll welcome you back into our special coverage of Hurricane Irma. I'm meteorologist Maria LaRosa.
And I'm meteorologist Chris Bruin. We want to welcome our viewers in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina who are watching us on their Local Now app. And here's the very latest on Hurricane Irma. Again, those hurricane watches are up in South Florida from Jupiter Inlet south to the Florida Keys and around the peninsula to Bonita Beach. Florida's governor warns the Category 5 storm could cause life-threatening impacts from coast to coast.
And fuel is scarce along many evacuation routes, and evacuees are being asked to take only the fuel they need. Drivers can check the Gas Buddy app to find fuel. Meanwhile, hotels in Florida are being urged to allow pets. So far, Irma is blamed for 6 deaths in the Caribbean.
And for the latest on what Hurricane Irma is doing right now, let's bring in hurricane specialist Carl Parker. A hurricane and storm surge watch has been issued for parts of South Florida and Keys. And Carl, what exactly does that mean for folks there still debating should they evacuate or not?
Well, that means we're looking at the possibility of 5 to 10 feet of inundation over normally dry ground there in South Florida, in addition to the potential for exceptionally strong wind coming all across South Florida. And that's going to be starting late Saturday and then going into Sunday morning. This could be one of the worst storms that we've seen in South Florida in a very long time. And let's take a look at the forecast here in just a moment and show you where the storm is right now. This is one of the strongest storms we've ever seen in the Atlantic Basin in recorded history. 175 miles per hour, Category 5. It is moving towards the west-northwest, not very far away from the Turks and Caicos Islands. There you see that well-defined eye that has changed very little. There's really nothing that's going to weaken this storm anytime soon. And we're seeing that eye wall, that ring of storms that produces the most extreme wind on the order of 130, 140, 150 miles per hour. That's right in here, and that's now about 8 miles away from Grand Turk Island, which is right there. So we're now probably down to about 30 to 40 minutes before that very worst of the wind moves in. And in addition to that, the storm, of course, has been piling up the water for quite some time now. So we're looking for storm surge values on the order of 15 to 20 feet from the Turks and Caicos on north and westward into the southern part of Bahamas. There's a lot of low-lying terrain there in the Turks and Caicos and Bahamas, which means a lot of those islands are going to be inundated. Unfortunately, there you see that 5 to 10 foot forecast, again, of normally dry ground there in South Florida. So you see the upper level wind pattern, clouds really spreading out in all directions. Wind shear is not going to be a factor until the storm gets up into the latitude of North Florida and Georgia. And then here you see the exceptionally warm water that is out ahead of the storm as well. The only thing that might have some impact could be a little bit of land interaction with Cuba if it gets close enough to Cuba that it may be fairly far offshore. So this is the forecast track and intensities from the Hurricane Center. And you see the best guess right now down the middle takes it right into South Florida. And we're looking at an intensity potentially Category 4 at that time. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be that. It could be weaker. It could also be stronger than that. But we're talking about most likely a major storm on the order of some of the great storms in South Florida history coming in late Saturday and early Sunday. And that could be just devastating from South Florida up the 95 corridor, unless it were to move well to the west or well to the east. But the best guess right now is that it will come more directly into South Florida. Chris Marino.
And the best thing to do is continue to monitor. Well, parts of Brevard County will begin mandatory evacuations Friday afternoon, including the barrier islands like Cocoa Beach.
And the Weather Channel's John Zarella is there live. And John, a lot of people kind of concerned with Matthew arrived fresh on their minds. Is this going to be a similar storm, and how are people evacuating?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. Maria, you know, that's A1A. This is A1A here behind me, and right behind that is the Atlantic Ocean. The other side there is the Banana River and the Indian River. So this is a barrier island. You mentioned mandatory evacuations beginning 3 p.m. tomorrow. And the folks here are certainly taking this seriously. They went through this last year. Matthew was supposed to make a direct hit on this area, veered off at the very last minute. So we had about 107 mile an hour maximum gust recorded out at Cape Canaveral. But this could be a very different animal. Now, I want to show you something over here. This is the Winn-Dixie supermarket. A year ago, the roof was ripped off during Matthew. They just reopened 2 months ago, and they're going through this again. A couple other things. I talked to the Space Center folks this morning. They are going to be buttoning up the Kennedy Space Center, finishing putting whatever they can, locking it down. Come tomorrow, they're closed. Space Florida, 2 major projects that they're working on, a rocket plant and a satellite manufacturing plant immediately. Cruise ships, they're dropping passengers off early, then they'll be taking off to Safe Harbor. There are 3 of them in the port right now as we speak. So a lot going on here, a lot of people boarding up, and I guarantee you that by tomorrow, the level of anxiety here is going to be ratcheted up quite a bit more. Chris, Maria?
All right, so thank you so much. And yes, absolutely, the Space Coast is taking precautions right now, and that includes for visitors as well. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the impacts here. And, you know, obviously the wind and the surge as well, but a lot of rain could come along with this storm system as well. This too, it's track dependent. So you look at the sort of the bullseyes here where you're looking at 12 to 18 inches of rainfall. You get a little shift of track there, and you could be looking at a lot more people seeing that level of rainfall. But when it comes to storm surge, I want to highlight a few areas, including Marathon, Florida. Of course, those evacuations underway, but that storm surge up to 10 feet, keeping in mind that Marathon's top elevation, I guess one of the keys, only about 3 feet above sea level. And then you have Miami. This is something too, where you could be looking at 100-mile-per-hour wind gusts as early as overnight Saturday into Sunday morning. Also 8 to 12 inches of rainfall and up to 10 feet of storm surge with what we know right now in West Palm Beach as well. Those gusts picking up certainly as we get from Saturday morning, but really late Saturday to early on Sunday.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just 1 pill. Aleve, all day strong.
I'm Chris, and I lost 120 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Listen up, guys. Want to